Welcome to Now You're Talking. If you're a parent trying to create healthier screen habits, you're not alone. This conversation offers hope, support, and real-life solutions. Listen to episodes filled with real talk and relatable stories. Together, we can change the way families connect, one conversation at a time. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen and leave us a review. You'll find all the links in the show notes. In this heartfelt episode, my daughter Rachel and I have a raw, honest conversation about the realities of parenting in today's screen-saturated world. As a mom to a 9-year-old and a demanding career as a mortgage professional, Rach shares the daily struggle of balancing screen access for social inclusion with the need to protect her daughter from digital overload. We talk about the emotional and developmental impact of screen use, especially for kids with ADHD, and how platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Roblox shape how children connect, speak, and feel about themselves. Rach shares lessons learned, including the tough consequences of giving a smartphone too early and the importance of staying actively involved. From device transparency to tech-free time, this episode is full of practical tips and eye-opening reflections. Let's get started. Rach, how wonderful it is to be here with you. I've known you your entire life. As my daughter, I've watched you through all stages of life. I've watched you grow and face challenges, conquer challenges, and continuing to grow in your career and as a mom, and I admire you hugely. What I wanted to talk about today is, how is it raising a child? How are you navigating this digital era, the age of screens?
Well, thanks for having me. This is very exciting. Speaking of digital, it's funny that we're meeting on a digital platform right around the corner. It's a daily trial and error, I would say, navigating the digital world with my preteen 9.5-year-old. It's a balance between allowing them to have access and not having too much access, but also making sure that they're not behind the times with their peers. That's a constant balancing act. So imagine being out on the playground and all the other kids are talking about viral TikTok or a YouTube video, and then your child is going, "My parents don't allow me to have screens." They're automatically excluded from that conversation because they don't know what other kids are talking about. They can't participate.
My goodness. And so that's the children. What are your conversations like with the parents when that happens?
Well, there's two teams. There's the pro screen and there's the anti-screen. I would say the anti-screen is a shrinking team. I'd say that most people allow screens in some way, shape, or form, whether it's minimal times during the day, or if they allow their kids to have phones and iPads at their will. I think we all face the same struggles with that, but I will tell you that it's very difficult to have, let's say Michaela, my daughter, has a child that she's friends with who comes from an anti-screen family. They really struggle to connect. So if I have that kid over for a play date, I find that they really don't have a lot in common.
So how do you navigate that?
Well, I have to be more involved because growing up without screens, I have the ability to come up with ideas that they can do. It's having to teach Michaela how to have fun without screens. It's difficult because a lot of the things that they do revolve around screens, and also being a parent, sometimes it's easier to allow them to have their screens so that they're not constantly asking you to do things.
That has to be difficult because you are juggling a very challenging career and you are managing being a mom at the same time, trying to raise a child who's balanced in every aspect, plus being pulled in so many directions with her activities.
Yes. And teaching them to not be on their screens and be as involved in their screens and social media is hard when we are doing the same thing. So that is probably my biggest challenge as a parent, as a working parent, I'd say, is I'm on my screen constantly, whether it's reading emails or on the phone or texting clients. And so Michaela will see that and thinks that it's okay. So for me to say, okay, well, let's limit the screen time, that's not an easy conversation. I get the,
No.
well, why? You're always on your screen comment.
That makes sense. The kids model what they see. So
Yeah.
let's go back, being your mom. Let's go back to when you were raised without screens, and it was difficult enough to raise children and raise four daughters in any era. But what I see and what I observe, it's that much more difficult with screens. And so you and your younger sister you weren't raised with screens except one that we sort of shared. Besides the TV screen, we had a shared computer screen in the dining room, but nobody had screens all to themselves. So it's just so interesting to watch how you evolve that and still raise children and who are balanced.
So, even at that point, screens back in 2000 are not the same as screens now. So a computer that we would share as a family, maybe we would use it to go on MSN Messenger or something and talk to a couple of friends. But now screens allow them to have a different world. And so if I were to think back when I was 13 and flash forward 20 years, I would never imagine that we would have this much access and this much connectivity to everybody, even strangers. I mean, kids now, instead of talking about their favorite actor or actress, it's their favorite YouTube star.
Yes.
And so it's another world that has evolved in the last 10 years that I don't even know about. I didn't get my first phone until I was 12, and it was not really a screen. Text messages cost 10 cents a piece.
So knowing what you know now and coming where you've come from, how do you want things to evolve going forward for Michaela?
Want and need is two separate things, I think, because I would prefer that screen time is minimized, and I would prefer that she's not so engaged in her phone and that every time we get into the car, she's not saying, Mom, can I have my phone? And putting her headphones on and not talking to me for the entire drive. But I also recognize that we now rely on screens so much. For example, at school, a lot of the homework is go Google this. So if you can't eliminate them completely, but I think it's okay for kids to have screens because it's where the world is at. But I have noticed that just from, a personal point of view with my daughter has ADHD, and it makes those symptoms so much worse because it's constant new information. That's a really good question. I know we need them, but I wish we had less of them.
So two things. Can you explain why ADHD? Because you hear more about ADHD now than certainly I did when you were growing up. But ADHD, it's all changed. When I was raising you girls, ADHD only happened with boys. And it was Ritalin but you didn't want to give your kids Ritalin, but it was never a girl thing in my memory. So it's changed. So you sort of mentioned a little bit about how it makes it worse. Tell me a little bit more about that, how the screens contributes to that, and are screens, or could they be a reason why we're hearing about it more?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, being the mom of a ADHD child and also having ADHD myself, I've done a lot of research into it. And for kids that have ADHD, their minds are constantly spinning. And the reason that it was thought of as a boy's thing was just because they didn't know how it presented in girls and how it presented differently. So girls are chatty and they talk a lot and they're a little disorganized and they just show in different ways. And so with these kids, if they are watching, let's say, YouTube, and there's constant things happening and there's bright lights and there's flashes, that's just a constant dopamine hit. And for kids with ADHD, that really calms them a little bit. They can disassociate their mind and pay attention to just that. And sometimes if everything outside is noisy and they can just focus on this one thing, it just puts them in a different world. A lot of kids with ADHD do love their screens. And for parents, it's kind of sometimes if you have a child with ADHD, you know that sometimes you just need a couple minutes of quiet for yourself. And so
Yes.
the default sometimes is, okay, take your screen for a couple minutes. Let's just take a couple of minutes of chill time. So I personally have used it as a crutch for some quiet time for myself. Sometimes we get into those habits.
Understandably. I've watched Michaela's, she is quiet, she's absorbed. But so when Michaela's getting those dopamine hits, it must be that much more difficult to take the screen away from her because it's feeding something that's so positive for her.
Yeah.
In
And
a way.
then they're fighting you to not have it taken away. And there's becomes an appendage to them. Like they don't go anywhere without their screens. And so if you take it away from them, I've noticed Michaela especially gets really angry about it. She knows that it makes her feel better and calm. So why am I taking it away? So she doesn't understand. I think it's hard for kids to understand that there's negative effects to the screens when you're different.
So knowing what you know now, how do you move forward from this? You know, I mean, I don't envy what it must be like because you need your time. You need your time to work. You need your screen time. So how do you move forward with that and still maintain a balance?
Well, it's an everyday learning thing because every day new things come up. What I have now realized is that within these games that they might play on their screens, Roblox, Fortnite, you name it, there's also this really not great world of strangers that are on it. And so I think as parents, we just have to be more vigilant about what the kids are playing, which means getting more involved in their world, which I look at that and I think it's a nightmare because I don't understand the games. I don't understand the language, but I think it's important as parents that we do try at least to understand and ask more questions to the kids because they're the ones that are going to be able to tell us. And so that we can figure out what the dangers are, what the risks are. I had no idea that in a lot of these games, majority of them actually, there's chat rooms. And this is a source of people that want to prey on kids. That's where they go. Unless I ask those questions and talk to other parents, I would never know this type of information. And then the other part of screen time is the social interactions between kids. And I know bullying has been a thing for a long time, but we've now moved to the kids having so much access to technology and so much intelligence around technology that they know how to hide it. They know how to hurt in different ways. They know how to bully online, just all stuff that we didn't experience.
Wow. So you're learning, not only learning and continuing to learn about being a parent, but you're learning about what's happening online, and that changes daily? Is that what you said? It changes daily.
New languages every day, new words that come home that I have to go and Google.
You tell us about that because I remember you told me a few days ago that Michaela, being 9, and is speaking a different language. Is that where it's coming from?
A lot of it's coming from games like Roblox and Fortnite and these YouTubers that have become these idolized, famous people that all of the kids watch, and they all talk about their favorite YouTubers, but they all have this way of talking that they introduce new words and then all the kids use it. And if you're not using it, then you're not cool. And I can't even think of one of the words right now, but Riz, for example. Like it's just words that come up that I actually have to go and Google. And we don't know them.
Wow. And so you said when Michaela gets in the car and she puts on her headphones and then you're no longer having conversation, how do you inspire conversation?
Well, I try every time to accidentally forget the headphones or the device at home, or I ask her to just chat with me until we get to 49th and Granville. Or I wind up compromising and negotiating with a 9-year-old about having to have interaction with me, having to answer 3 questions before she puts her headphones on. Or another thing that we've done is on weekdays, we've actually gone backwards a little bit in technology, and we have actually bought her a MP3 player, which only allows music.
So that's what you guys had, an MP3?
Yeah. We had to explain to her what a MP3 player is, and that no, she can't text her friends on it, and no, she can't call from it. And it took her at least a few days to wrap her head around what this was, and she calls it a mini music box.
So what's the hook then? Why does Michaela want that?
What the kids will do is come up with reasons or justification as to why they need to have their screens. So I made what I now know is a mistake, but to buy Michaela a phone, which was an iPhone, and so she could call me, but she never used it to call me. She just used it for everything else. And so her rationale for needing to bring her phone to school was that she wanted to listen to music on the way there and back. So we said, okay, well, here's your mini music box, and now you don't need your phone to bring to school.
Okay, so you said that it was a mistake. So this is to help other parents that are raising kids maybe younger than Michaela. Tell me more about that, about a mistake.
I thought that giving her a phone would give her more independence and the ability to go walk to school on her own. Michaela sometimes is away from me to see her other parents sometimes, and so I wanted her to have access to me at all times. But what I didn't realize is that you would actually have to have them want to have access to you at all times and actually take advantage of having that ability. But I found that she didn't. She would just use her phone. If she ever were to contact me, it would be to either ask me to have a friend over or for money. So I realized that she didn't actually need it. She was fine before and she's been fine since. And now we just have the phone for just certain things. Like if she wants to arrange a play date, but she has to do it when we're watching her. Well, we did have some situations where there was a lot of bullying happening and Michaela wasn't telling us about it, but we noticed a big shift in her mood. And there was it was almost like she would come home and want to go directly to her phone, and I couldn't understand why. And we just noticed that her mood was getting lower and lower and lower, and that all she wanted to do was be in her room by herself. And then we kind of unraveled what was happening, and there was bullying, but it was both ways, and it was just kids being mean to each other and isolating. But it's a lot easier to isolate over the phone and text message than it is in person. But what was happening on the phone was extending to in person. So myself and the other parents actually just removed the phones for a while to help with the conflict. I kept it removed.
Okay. So as a parent, then you almost have to be hyper vigilant and hyper aware of shifts in behavior.
Yeah.
And how much does your intuition come into that?
Quite a bit, because I know my daughter very well and I know her moods and her mood swings and her behavior and answers when I ask her questions. But also my intuition doesn't work sometimes when I have to figure out why it's happening, because that it's just things that I don't understand. There's just different conflicts on the school ground than there is now, or than there was when I was around. The bullying is just, the words that they use are just so much worse. And it's just harder, I think, to understand why the things are happening, but I definitely know when there's something happening. But it takes a little bit of deep diving, and usually on devices to figure out what the root cause is.
And so do you then take Kayla's device and then sort of do some sleuthing that way?
I don't have to sleuth, because I told her that if she has any type of device, whether it's if she has an iPad, a phone, and a PS5, so myself and my partner Eric have full access to her devices whenever we ask. So if we say, Michaela, phone, she has to give it to us. That's the rule. We can see all of her communication on our phones so that we know what's going on in real time if we were to go in and check.
Okay. Oh, good. So is that a new thing?
So,
what's a PS5? What's that?
Oh, a PlayStation 5.
Oh, okay.
This was also the idea to take her off of her screen if she wants to. She said, well, I really want to play the games. So we said, okay, well, let's get you a game console. And then you won't be talking to your friends. And this is where we figured out that there's these chat rooms and other ways to communicate.
Well, that's so interesting, Rach. So you're going back in time in order to regain that balance. You're going back to the foundational in order to go forward. Yeah. Oh, that is so interesting. And so you said when you realized that Michaela was being bullied, that you connected with other parents. So you're of the screen parents. Do you have an open communication with other parents? And is that something that you would suggest is a good thing to do?
100%. Because you can get one story, as you know very well, from your children, and then get a completely different story from the other child. But what is cool about the majority of the parents, with a couple unfortunate exceptions, as there always is, usually when the parents get involved and discuss it together, we can figure out pretty quickly what's happening with both kids, devices, and just kids talk. And so I will hear stuff that Michaela's talking about with one of her friends, and it'll be about something that's happened. And then you connect with other parents, say, hey, do you know what's going on? And then we'll piece it all together.
So that requiring a village to raise a child, I mean, it seems like that's even more essential now than ever before. And you really need to band together, the non-screen people and the screen people. It needs to be a collaborative thing.
Non-screen people are a bit judgy because they go, oh, well, that's the problem with screens. It's like, okay, but this is where we're at.
Yes. So, it's so interesting. So going back to conversation, how important is having that conversation with Michaela, and how open is she to have that when she's in that sort of crisis situation?
Depends if she is the instigator or not.
That makes sense.
I get to know pretty quickly if the situation has been caused by her because she's not forthcoming on it, or it's either one of the two. She doesn't want to talk about it, or she'll be extra forthcoming about why it was the other person's fault. Yeah, strong offense, that's a good way to put it. But it depends how I became aware of the situation, whether it be an email from a teacher or it be looking at her conversations. And usually as soon as I go, well, I've read this and I'm not happy about it, then she's very open about it now because she's been caught.
She's busted, yeah.
So she usually knows when I know, and then we're able to have a conversation.
Well, Rach, this has been enlightening for me. I had no idea. Raising you girls was, as you know, my biggest challenge and my greatest achievement. And this just adds a level of complexity that is so beyond my comprehension. And you're managing it very well, and you will continue to do so. I know that. What I see from a mother's, from a grandmother's perspective, is that need for conversation. And so that's why I created the game Now You're Talking. Any listener can find out more about it by going to nowyou'retalkinggame.com and find out when it's going to be available, which it will be available by the end of this year, 2025. You have played Now You're Talking many times, and you've played it many, many times. Can you just tell me a little bit about your experience playing the game?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the game. We look forward to playing the game. The cool thing about it is that it's actually a different experience every time based on the people you're playing with. So we've played with so many different groups and amalgamations of different people, whether those people know each other well or they don't know each other. It's really cool because you get different answers every time and you get different table shatter every time. And I think what one person says just kind of opens it up for different conversations. I love it. It brings people together. Even if you've known each other for 37 years, you get to know more things about that person because it's just things that people generally don't think to talk about because unless you're asked a question, you don't generally bring some things up. So yeah, I love it.
Oh,
it just opens it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Well, you've had boyfriends brought into the family, and it's rite of passage. It does work for all age groups. And one of my favorite times is I could see Kayla's face when you're answered a question or you're asked a question, and she just can't wait to hear about how much trouble you got in high school. And I just remember Kayla's face lighting up.
Yeah.
When you answered that, what was it like for you to play with Gigi, your grandmother?
That's cool. Because Gigi is 93 and just has such different life experiences and so many more life experiences than we do, being a third of her age. So it was just really cool to hear those answers, and also things that we hadn't heard from her before because, again, there's such specific topics and questions sometimes that it's just not things that come up in every day. Really cool. You can always get to know more about someone even if you've known them forever.
Okay, well, great. So I'd like to ask you a couple questions, just
Sure.
out of the game. So for people who are listening, there's 5 card categories. One about growth and change and different roles that you've played in your life. There's a wild card, and then there's questions about adversity and the impressionable years. So those formative high school years. These questions can be adapted for the younger group. When we ask Michaela questions about high school, she knows to just say school. So it can be adapted for all different age groups. So Rach, what compliment have you received in your life that stands out for you?
Well, I think, oh yeah, that's a compliment. And I'm like, ooh, sometimes it's my biggest challenge is that I can take on a lot of things and I'm best at my busiest. I'm most effective when I'm most busy, which also probably speaks to my ADHD. I like being busy constantly, but I do definitely have the best results and the best ability to manage things when I have a lot of things on my plate. In turn, I do take on a lot of things and put a lot of things on my plate, which can be stressful at times, but I also wouldn't want it any other way. So I like when people have recognized that.
Well, you are a classic. Ask the busiest person when you want something done. Because
That
I
is
know what
actually, that is actually Bob saying that.
it's true. Asking you to be on this podcast, there was no hesitation, of course, and knowing how busy you are. What is the best advice that you've received that you have integrated into your life?
It actually goes hand in hand with the last question. Up until pretty recently, taking time for myself has not been anywhere on my priority list. Zero part of that. I would always say, okay, well, I don't need to go to that naturopath appointment. I got so many other things on my plate. So prioritizing things like health is really going to help me in the long run. And also taking half an hour out of my day from sitting and going on a walk, even if I think that I don't have time for it, just making sure I'm building in that time into my day.
Yes.
Or else
Yeah.
everything else will suffer.
Which goes back to screen time. It's all connected. You're under pressure on every level to get things done. You're dealing with a daughter who's busy and active, and so you have to use every minute because every minute's valuable. It is such a delicate balancing act that you're dealing with as a mom, and then forgetting to put yourself into the equation. You're the glue that holds it all together.
Yes, and it is disastrous when that glue doesn't hold because I think as parents, mothers, a lot of the time, if we get to the point where we are just like, that's it, I need a break, then we're so far gone past the point of exhaustion and being overwhelmed. Things have been dropping way before that point. So I think if we're managing it better and building in that time and taking care of ourselves, we're not going to get to that breaking point as fast and as easy. But
Yeah.
it definitely is a conscious decision to build in that time as opposed to easy. Got to do that, of course.
Right. Knowing that you've got to put yourself into the equation and making yourself a priority. Oh, from my ears, Rach, that's a very positive thing to hear. It's so funny, Rach. I pulled out cards that are all sort of connected. What strength do you have when overdone becomes a weakness? Well, it's the same.
Answer that
Same,
one.
I know. Wow. I must have been thinking about who you are as a person. How did your 20s contribute to who you are
Oof.
today?
My 20s. Well, I had my daughter at 27. My 20s was pretty expedited, I would say. I came out of university and decided that what I went to school for wasn't really my desired path any longer. And I got into another line of business, which I'm still in today and love. But I, at 21, decided to commit hard to building that business. And I think that just became my focus at a really early age. And I lived in Alberta, and we're talking years ago now. So I had a different frame of mind than I do now, but it was buy a house, have kids, get married, do all of the things. So I think if I were to go back and do it again, my 20s would look a lot different than they did for me. I'm kind of living my 20s now, I think, and exploring what I want to do. So I think I did things a little earlier, and
I don't know,
they were great. I loved my 20s. I spent a year in Hong Kong, and I got to do a bunch of cool things. But I definitely was very set on this is how I need to do things, and this is the path I need to take.
You're still that way. I still think you had to go through that. You had to
Yeah,
go
oh,
through that
totally.
in order to have the
Totally.
perspective you have now.
Yeah, no, now I kind of take things a little bit more like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do it this way. Because I can tell you that when I was 21, I didn't see myself, single mother for 8 years and moving provinces and figuring it out all the hard way. So having been through all of that and being in a place now where I'm turning 37 and things are going well. I am surrounded by some people my age who are just starting to think about having kids. We're in different stages of life now. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you'll be a great mentor to the people who are just starting to have kids now. What advice would you give to high school graduates who are graduating today?
Well, my first piece of advice would be don't jump into real life too quickly. If you want to go to university, that's great, but make sure you figured out who you are a little bit before you commit to something like university for 4 years. And also, if you need to pivot, then pivot and don't be worried about that. Don't be worried about making mistakes. And kids who are 17 coming out of high school and jumping straight into university, as amazing as university is, I just add some more things into your life to figure out who you are. So join some clubs, do some things. Don't be so focused on getting a job and doing that right away, and allow things to happen and be able to pivot.
You did pivot. You went into university and into kinesiology. You got your degree and you spent your third year in Hong Kong. How did that experience point you in a roundabout way into the career you are in today?
I wish I pivoted earlier because I decided that I wanted to do that and I didn't want to change my mind and fail at what I had decided to do. Now that I look back, it wouldn't have been a failure. It would have been a pivot. That's a really good question. Being in university was great. I wouldn't change anything about it. I wish I had gone to school for things I'm more passionate about. But by the time I was on a fast track, but I definitely would have gone to further school for business and done more school, but I was on a track. Okay, I'm old because I'm 22 and I bought my first house at 21. So I didn't entertain the idea of going and becoming a lawyer or going and getting my MBA or doing any of that stuff because I had committed to that path. So I think accepting that the path might change is okay.
So you were tunnel vision. You were goal driven and tunnel vision to get there. So I'm going to just pivot a little bit from now you're talking and back to raising children and being a mom in this digital era. What do you hope for kids of this generation? Given the complexities, there's got to be some positives that come out of it. What do you hope for kids of this generation?
I hope that they realize the power of technology and use it to further their generation and really use it for good and use it for making this world better. What I hope is that they become less focused on their own screens and using technology to make things better for their generation. Because right now, they're a very selfish generation from my observation. They are very focused on their image and themselves. And it's because they're constantly engrossed in this thing. There is so much good stuff with technology. The amount that social media has helped in so many ways, like it has created just a whole another platform for entrepreneurs and for connectivity, and there's so many good things, but I think the kids just don't understand the power of it yet, and they're just focused on their own little worlds. So
what steps are you going to take as a mom to help facilitate that?
we are in the generation of putting our kids in camps and lessons and bringing in third parties to help teach our kids because they don't listen to us. But a lot of the stuff that I put Michaela in will be focused on, I want to put her in coding. Kids need to understand that technology is not just for talking to their friends or Roblox. They need to understand the power of it, providing them with opportunities for them to learn more. I think the school is actually doing a good job too. Michaela has learned how to type in grade 4. It's an actual typing course so she can type without looking at the keyboards, and they work on this kind of stuff. I think the schools are doing a good job at integrating it, but I do see a world soon where every kid must have an iPad in order to go to school because it goes from no paper to full iPad-based schooling. To be comfortable with it.
How are you going to facilitate the better communication?
Michaela and I have built in time each day where we do something not technology. So we will
Yeah, good.
color or go out on the deck, or we will do something with our hands where it's not looking at a screen. Sometimes we will do a lot of games, education games are on a screen. We'll do it together, being able to talk about it while we're doing something. So we are building connection. I require her to write every day and read every day on paper.
Okay, great. What is one or two words of wisdom that you can provide for other parents who may be struggling with some of the same things that you are?
One thing that really helped me was listening and learning about their world without judging it and saying, these stupid games, I hate them. I don't want to learn anything about them, but actually engaging with them and listening to what they have to say. Because if you actually peel off the layer, it's just a game. Some of the things that they're doing on these games like Roblox is actually so cool. They're building cities, and the way that they talk about it, it's very cool to listen to. So when you ask the questions, and they'll want to talk to you more. So Michaela will talk to me about this thing that she built. And although it's totally over my head, at least she's talking to me about it as opposed to just in her own world.
That would be positive. I remember you guys used to play, what was that family? The Sims. Yes, I remember that. Was there ever an opportunity for you to play the same game, or is that out of bounds for you?
I don't have a comfort level with games because I don't know if it's the male female in our generation upbringing, but Dad and I played Mario Party maybe once in a while growing up. But the great thing about having a male involved, I think guys grew up playing a lot more video games than girls did. So Eric and Michaela will play video games together, and that's bonding time because they talk about strategy and they'll talk about the story behind the game. For me, I really struggle unless it's like a racing game or something where it's a competition. But a lot of these games they will play together. It's like a storybook where you have to start it and you're given a task, and then you go through this mission, and then you have to finish it. They've done a few of those together, but it's an ordeal. I can't connect with it, so we do other things. There is an opportunity for it, but I just don't understand it.
That's interesting. That gives me hope in a lot of ways because the gaming world has traditionally been a male world.
Yeah.
Your
and
skills
I think
are very
there's
developed.
a huge opportunity for girls. Girls today, not too long down the road, huge opportunity for women in gaming and AI and technology. They have the same understanding. It's a level playing field now.
There will be positive things that come out of this. And it's just a matter of managing this for parents and grandparents, managing and helping kids to navigate it.
Yeah.
Navigate them through it. Well, Rach, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you,
time today and for your wisdom. I continue to watch you and Michaela grow and thrive.
Thank you, Mom. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us. As parents, we do our best every day. Sometimes in the chaos and noise of modern life, real connection can slip through the cracks. That's why conversations matter. If this episode inspired a new perspective or gave you something worth sharing, send it to a friend or fellow parent. Let's create more moments that matter. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and leave us a review. You'll find all the links in the show notes. Want to bring conversations into your own home? Find out when and where you can purchase your copy of the board game Now You're Talking by visiting nowyourtalkinggame.com. Let the conversations begin. Now You're Talking.